Welcome back to Archean, episode 10 of the Series 1 playthrough. And it is night, but fortunately the moon is partly out. And that actually gives us quite a bit of light. And in this episode, we'll be working on the wet sub. So no coding this time. And let's get the construction going here. Yeah, we're going to need quite a few batteries. We're going to get a quick 5x dip in the water for some construction loop. All right, back to the sub that we started on, our wet sub, since it will not have any air pockets in it. So I'm trying to locate the center point. So I kind of like, the base of it is 3 full-size, 3 by 3 meter quote-unquote wall sections. So I'm just using that as a figure out the center. It's right there. I decided I'm going to put the ore scanner in the center, so I don't have it sitting in front. I mean, there's no reason to have it sitting in the front of the vehicle. It's only a couple meters difference. And looking at what I have and what I need to build. So we need to put quite a few batteries in here for power. Fortunately, I don't think we have to go too far. So I'm thinking of having 6 of the high voltage batteries in here. Keep my Q going here. I realize I put that in the wrong spot. Throughout this video, all sections where I'm constructing, I'll just speed those up. So if you all of a sudden see the video zipping up. So I'm putting a data bridge and a low power bridge. Just make some more of those. And that's for the scanner, which is sitting on top of the pivot. I put them right there to try to make the wires as close as possible, so you don't see the sort of twisting wire. Of course, since it's in the middle now, it really won't be that visible. Yeah, so I'm going with a total of 6 batteries, and I hope that's enough. So here I am sort of doing construction while building, constructing while building. And there's my pivot, and so it's facing forward, so I have the ports in the back, so it means trying to figure out how high to make it. I'm using the X key so I can center it. You can be careful with that, because once you center it like that, you can't put blocks on top of it. So blocks can't be centered. And so if you want to put a block on top of that pivot, you can't, because it's offset. All right, so I received feedback. These do not have to be in the center of the vehicle. A plane is a plane. And I'm just putting them here just to get them out of the way. Not because it's the center. It's more for, it looks nice, I think, here than anywhere else. Versus kind of sticking them on the console or front of the ship type thing. So, also because I already have the pivot and the ore stuff, I'll be having a router back here, mini router, to connect all that up. So adding 2 more sensors to the router is no big deal. Okay, so in this build I'm going kind of crazy with the mini routers, and since only the first one has to be powered, it makes the cabling a little easier. So basically it allows me, instead of running like 10 cables from the front of the ship to the back, I can just kind of route one to a mini router and then expand out from there. So that definitely makes things a lot easier. What I'm sort of trying to do, more or less, is I have the data lines on the starboard side and the low power on the port side. Okay, so I hit F2. I just want to get in here. And then I'll cover this up. And then when I connect, I probably should have gone the other way. I should probably run the wire. I should probably connect it to the outside wire and use the inside wire to connect to the ore scanner. That would have been a tighter wire layout. That's a data line. Okay, power line. That would have been, I think, wrong wire. Yeah, I should just flip that. We'll do that. I'm not going to change it for this build, but in the future build. I was trying to keep that spinning wire a little more hidden, but I think I've gone the other way. That would have been better. And this makes, having this router here, I keep hitting the F1 when I try to hit the tab, I hit F1 by mistake. Okay, so we have our tilt sensors, we have our pivot, we have our ore scanner. And we'll do the same as before as far as the vehicle. We'll call them the same thing, tilt X and Z. I kind of like it in the middle here. I think it adds something aesthetically to the vehicle build. Now, because we're using a data bridge, I have to name the bridge. So the pivot is directly connected to the router, so it gets a name. But when I name the ore scanner, I will name the bridge itself, not the actual ore scanner device. That's the key thing about bridges. Trying to think how I'm going to put. So we have 3 connections back here because we have 3 propellers on each corner. So we'll throw a mini router, and then we'll throw a high power junction to deal with those 3 props. So speaking of cable layout, so you have a couple of options. One, if you're running it across like a surface, you hit the X key, it will put the cable on the other side, so other side of the block automatically. And if you use F2, you can fly in between the blocks, inside the blocks, and route within there. And I've done that, play around with that a bit. The downside, it takes a while, and I can get lost with, you have a complex structure. I sometimes get lost where exactly I'm at and have to rerun the cable multiple times. So I think in this case, I'm not going to bother doing the fancy stuff. I'm just going to keep everything visible. This is more of a in development vehicle. If it was a more finished vehicle, like I build it up and go, this design is now perfect. Unlikely to change it. Then I would go back and probably clean up the wiring and cabling and put things inside. Spend all extra time doing the nicety like that, but I want the flexibility to change things, and with the cable visible, it's easy just to knock them out if need to. So I'm going to tap off the main battery there, just making sure I've got everything nice and pretty and centered, and using blocks as a sort of a temporary jig here. So I can move this over. Oop, wrong orientation. And then we remove our blocks. So run output of that to input of this one. And then there to there. Oops. So I connect that to the battery source here. And we'll connect that to there. So they got power. And then we need to run cable. I could just put another junction up there, but I decided not to. And we got to power our first router needs to be powered, or I should say any router directly connected to the computer needs to be powered. And we'll connect this number 5 to the seat, which is typically what I've been doing. And then we'll connect switch 1 through 4 into computer port 1 through 4. And I'm getting to a point, I think I need more switches. 4 switches just doesn't seem to be enough. So I may have to just stick some on the side there at some point if I need more. I'm just making sure I ran that to the right direction. Okay, it does. That one goes to port 3 and port 4. Looking for my speed sensor, so make one of those. And while we're at it, let's make some other junk while we're building. Now the speed sensor, I kind of broke my own rule. I should have put the speed sensor, well, I could have put the speed sensor in the back with the sensor cluster in the middle there. But the vehicle code that I'm going to reuse, that room uses port 0 for the speed sensor, so I'll just put it there. But I think if I had to rebuild this, I would move the speed sensor to the cluster in the middle there. I have room on the other side to put it. And let's connect this up. We'll get barely fancy. As long as I don't hang it up in the air, you know, float in the air somewhere, I'm fine. Okay, so yeah, it won't let me connect it because it's I ran out of data spool, and it's got a big red arrow there. I wish it would graphically just wouldn't let you draw it that far. That when you draw it across, it would just stop halfway and display the error message. So we need more cable. And we're going to hop out and we're going to take the old spool and just toss it here. So the next time we reload, it's gone. You can also use a trash can and toss it into the trash can to get rid of anything. All right, so my understanding of how batteries work is they're self-leveling, which means if I connect all the batteries together, power, charge always goes from higher to lower. So whatever has the lowest charge or whoever's have the highest charge, it flows to the lowest charge. So you connect everything together, they effectively self-level, so they all hit 0 effectively at the same time. And we'll just do this just enough so they don't like hang too in the space. So we'll just kind of fall a little bit. And I said if I used F2, I could have, or used X, I could have ran that inside. So I am aware of the technique. Yeah, it's fine like that. I was seeing if I could spin that prop around. I think if I put some temporary blocks around, I could spin the connectors to be on the inside and totally hide all that. But we'll call this a work in progress. Now we got to get the data lines going. Just double checking it actually connected. I want that one. I actually like this a lot better than what, at least when I was on Dual Universe, at least the early version of Dual Universe. I'm not sure if they ever changed it, but you would have like the lines kind of just going point to point, floating in the air. It's just a little more realistic. Now, if they prevented cables from crossing each other, that would definitely make a lot more work to connect everything. Others cables blocking other cables. It's always that balance between making it somewhat realistic and usability. And I'm going to connect one of the back. Okay, connect up the prop. And we'll just tap off these so we don't get too crazy power. Okay. Now we'll connect this off the router. Yeah, using the router, that's probably the one of the, when first starting off, not realizing how useful it is. And using names, because initially started putting everything on ports. Everything would be stuck on the computer ports. Kind of looking around what else I need to cable up here. Now, if you notice that connection between the right side router and the rear right side and the rear left eye, I attempted to connect and ran out of spool, and then I forgot to connect it after getting another data spool. I will spot that in the next video and fix it. Okay, so I'm not going to do any serious coding, but I am going to at least start some of the framework. So I'm going to steal code from the vehicle. Since I hand coded that in the game, I'm allowing myself to any existing code which I wrote by hand, I'm allowing myself to copy paste that within the game to another hard drive. At least gives me some of the basics, and I can go through there and clean it up a little bit, like the seat stuff and some of the basic stuff. I'm wondering why my computer wasn't turned on, because it didn't have any power. Okay. Yep, I still haven't spotted that connection not going across. That's why I do a test sequence, and I'll test everything out, make sure that works. That'll be the next episode where I'll go through and start the test sequence on the ground. Okay, I'm going to try to get slightly fancy, so we're not looking at a brick. And this is probably the limit of my creative skill. I guess if I'm zipping on the surface, that would help keep the bow out of the water. And I haven't really played with these things a little bit, so we'll try this. Everything else takes practice. I almost thought about leaving it sticking out. That might have been look a little cooler with little pointy parts. Kind of looking at everything and see, yeah, we need an anchor back here. I'm not sure if I actually need to use it, but I figure I just put it here just in case, so we have it. So you may notice there's no mining drill on this ship, and that is by design. So the bottom is very not flat. And so getting this thing leveled out and, positioned to where I can actually, get a mining drill going, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, once I hunt the spot for the gold or whatever I'm looking for in the water, I'm just going to set up a underwater mining facility and leave it there running. And if I can pull it off, I should be able to put some geothermic units underwater. And that will keep it continuous power and just let it, run full bore. And then grab some gold and then just leave it running after that. So I'm going to just tap off, since the batteries are self leveling. You look at the charge of one battery is the charge of all batteries, at least the main ones. So I figure I tap off one of them and give it a name and display the charge on the screen there at some point. All right, I think we're looking like something now. We got lots of props. And when we start playing around, we want to keep this thing charged. So we'll throw a bridge over here so we can always connect to the main base and top it off if need be. I was thinking about embedding it lower into the wall, but I think I pulled the whole wall out and I decided not to do that. That would have been a little cleaner look there. I'm sure I could spend hours just tearing this thing apart and redesigning it and doing this and doing that. And let's put some lights on here since it's dark. Some more batteries. Now it's running the old code. So let's go through and do some quick cleanup. Change those ports. The speed sensor is now on 0. This is where this configuration is nice because you can just change the constants and then reuse code like that. The tilt no longer is directly connected. See, the seat using stays the same. Seat settings. We don't need that. I'm just removing stuff I don't need that. I gotta change the tilt to use the name versus the port. We'll do that later, but we want the code there. I do want to do something to be out of the seat. I do want to kill any residual throttling and whatnot, so we'll put it to do there for now. And then we don't have any wheels, and that's the point. I don't have any wheels on this. It actually, you can move it a little bit on the ground without wheels. And it's more just to experiment running without wheels. And if I have to, I may they have those wheels that don't have any power, they just kind of roll. So if it becomes an issue, I'll throw those on there, or maybe actual real wheels, like I did in the Mixer amphibious ship, like I had in the cargo challenge. We'll have to see. Okay, so we got an error 33. Yep. All right, so now we got our speed, we got our tilt. Now the next video will go into a lot more finishing up the coding, well, not finishing up, doing a lot more coding and getting the props going and have it move forward and turn and all that. And I start playing around with the vertical props on the side to maintain leveling. So that'll be 11. So in episode 11 will be sort of the coding one, and in episode 12 I'll start probably continue working on some code, and then I got to start integrating the mining scanner logic and bring that over. Now I could use a separate computer and just sort of bring it over as is and just have it side by side, and originally I was going to merge it all in, but I think after all the fun I had with that code, I'm thinking now I may just pop down another computer next to this one. It won't be pretty, but it'll save a lot of time, and that way you don't have to stare at me for 2 episodes while I try to integrate all this code in one big blob and make it really confusing. So I think just for sake of speed, I'll just take another computer, drop here, and that way I can pretty much bring the code over and just replicate it. Just won't look as pretty, but we'll go with that. Once we have gold, it opens up additional options for more fancier vehicles. So you just need enough of a vehicle to get to that gold. And as I said, I could probably swim out there in that direction and poke around a little bit and possibly find the gold without building a sub, but that's not fun. All right, so we're at the end of this episode. Until next time, see ya.